As we are about to start our study today about Spiritism Inspiring Lives, we start with a message from the book Our Daily Bread from the Spirit Emmanuel, entitled Anxieties.
Anxieties. Casting all your anxiety on Him, for He cares for you. Anxieties trigger many crimes and they never construct anything useful on earth. Invariably, hasty persons have all the odds stacked against them. In contrast to tormenting anxieties, nature's lesson on patience speaks to every sector of the human pathway. If people were born to be anxious, it would be the same as saying that they have come into the world not as laborers to fulfill a sanctifying task, but as unredeemable souls in despair. If people would reflect more judiciously, they would recognize the opportunities for service that the moments of each day have to offer, and they would know how to look after their own endowments. Of course, the scenery changes constantly, compelling us to confront unpleasant surprises as a result of our inappropriate attitude toward happiness or pain. However, our obligation to progress daily towards the good is an essential imperative of the law. Anxiety tries to assail generous hearts because Earth's pathways hold many dark corners and many problems that are hard to solve. That being the case, let us remember Peter's prescription. Cast your anxieties about your hopes on your Heavenly Father, for the divine love desires well-being for all of us. It is right to strongly desire the victory of the light, to persevere in the search for peace, to discipline ourselves for the union with the higher realms, and to persist in attuning ourselves to the highest spheres. But to not forget that anxiety always precedes the fall.
In that way, we start our harmonization, calming our minds and hearts in this loving ambient where we find ourselves, prepared by those who anticipated us, the spiritual benefactors. In that way, we start to perceive ourselves as immortal beings, children of God, beings essentially of love, of goodness, who are evolving those degrees. We ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are with us find ourselves connected with a purpose to be in a position as learners in order to learn a bit more about the natural laws in the universe presented by Spiritism, which reflects the message of Jesus that brings the good news from God, the Creator of everything and everyone. Remembering that we are all essentially beings of goodness, learning how to evolve, how to progress, how to change our patterns of belief systems or values which are not in accordance with the greatest law in the universe, which is the law of love. And in that way, developing greater happiness, more fulfillment, as we start our studies today about the theme of dissobsession. We ask the protection of the Enlightened Spirits to be with all of us, enlightening our minds and touching our hearts, so that we can learn a bit more how to take care of ourselves as we are in a pathway of progress and evolution, united by the thought and feeling of universal fraternity, embraced by the same message of Jesus, love one another. We start our study today. So good. And as always, we carry on our study, which is interactive study. Today, reflecting about the Spiritism Inspiring Lives, because there's so many things that we can learn within Spiritism. And today we will be focused on the theme, test of process of dissobsession. That is the teaching by the Spirit benefactor André Luiz, how we can learn more about. Let's start first to reflect, what do we understand about this obsession within Spiritism? Or what is test?
Challenges for us to grow.
Test is challenging for us to grow. Tests are the possibilities that we ask and the universe is favoring us for us to progress, to go beyond our own shadows, our own limitations, our own imperfections. What is now understood in this stage, at least, by dissobsession? How could we explain according to our own understanding and also explain those who may be studying with us for the first time?
I was thinking about the concept of obsession, because obsession is when a spirit, incarnate or not, and not incarnate means we're still people, but without a physical body, and we can still influence each other, our thoughts. They're not so concrete and material as we think, and for that reason we can be influenced quite a lot. So we have this, which we call the Spiritism obsession, which is when a spirit can influence us in a bad way. But this obsession, and when I test the process of this obsession, is that we are always obsessed, because we are always obsessed.
We will find out if we are always obsessed, so that we need to work with this obsession. But obsession, as you rightly said, is a process where a spirit, either incarnate or disincarnate, can influence each other in a negative way. And we can also be under the process of self-obsession. And when we usually are through the self-obsession on weak points that we all bring within. And the test, as André Luiz puts, the test is helping us to reflect, to test us, to see where we are in relation to cooperate in our own healing process in this obsessing ourselves. You may ask, are you thinking that I'm obsessed? Well, are we all healthy on earth? Are we all really happy according to God's laws? Are we really carrying out our duties as we promised when we came back to earth? There is just some kind of examples. We start now with the message which is entitled, as I mentioned, Test, the Process of Dissobsession, in the book Meditações Diárias by the Spirit André Luiz. And then he starts with the word check. Check who? Us. So again, everything within the Spiritism brings the focus back to us. Check, he says, André Luiz, if you can already dispense with others the treatment you would like to receive. So yes, we need to answer. And then, how do we know? Because the title is Dissobsession. Can I live according to what he said for us to check? Can I live my life according to what he says? Check. If you can already dispense with others the treatment you would like to receive. Can we treat others as we would like to be treated?
With a lot of effort.
With a lot of effort. Which kind of ways would we like to be treated by others?
With respect.
With respect. What else?
We'd like people to listen to us.
We would like people to listen to us. What else?
With honesty.
We would like people to be honest with us, not to gossip around. We would like people to be cooperating.
Not aggressive.
We would like people to be more docile instead of aggressive. We would like people to be punctual. We would like people to be, what else?
Helping.
Cooperating, helping all the time, because we, on the end of the day, wherever we are all in the greatest purpose of helping each other, because no one is here to be alone. What else would we like that others treat us?
Dignity.
With dignity, with respect, as you said already, with consideration from a higher self level onwards, yes? All the references that we are reflecting here is based on the values of the self. So now we reflected in which way we would like people to treat us. In which way are we treating us? What do we need to learn in terms of how to address ourselves in order to disobsess?
With patience.
Learn to be patient. Obsession is the negative fixed idea, self-obsession in a negative way based on the values from the ego level onwards, or illusions, or imperfections, or shadows. Now, self-disobsession here can be also bring on a personal level. How do we need to learn to treat ourselves in order not to be self-obsessed in the first place? So what did you say? To learn to be responsible in our existences, isn't it?
Patience.
To learn to be patient with ourselves and others. Learn to be disciplined in our mental state of mind, discipline in our emotions, discipline in our actions according to the natural laws. What else?
Even it doesn't mean I will always have to treat myself in a certain way for me to be able to treat others. So I can just jump and treat others.
Well, I can train myself while I'm extending already there. But if I don't train it in order to condition myself in that way, I can start, but sooner or later, what is on my unconscious memory steps in and takes over. So it is a constant process that we elaborate the new ways of being on the conscious level. Is that making sense? What else can we as immortal beings to develop psychically in order to self-protect ourselves?
Commitment.
To be committed with ourselves towards what?
I heard this week noble commitments.
So learn to be committed towards our noble commitments, which could be examples of noble commitments for us as immortal beings who are reincarnated on earth.
Our moral and intellectual education. By learning to respect.
Learning to respect, learning to be good, learning to be forgiving, learning to be benevolent, learning to be indulgent, learning to be cooperative, learning always to develop the noble aspects, so I don't judge, I don't criticize, I don't slander. Yes? What else?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness is fundamental. How can we learn to expand the noble characters in our personality when we are in our workplace?
Being responsible.
Be responsible for my own task and also be willing to cooperate in the whole, not just in a narrow-minded, selfish way. I just do this bit and I have nothing to do with the other, which is a very selfish way. When we talk about noble characters, that reminds us the gospel according to Spiritism, when it talks about the characters of the good being. So we are constantly invited to go through and ascend our own
fraternity,
to learn to be respect, learn to be fraternal with each other. Would I also be right, either in the family setting, either in a work setting, also to be willing to develop humbleness? Because without humbleness, we are candidates, very high ones, to be self-obsessed and also to be under the obsession process. Okay? Anything else?
That's a lot.
That is a lot, yes. Hello. Hello. So now we carry on here. We are studying the message by Andrea Luiz entitled Test Process of Dissobsession. Then he carries on saying, check, if you postpone to fulfill your own tasks. We start, oh my God, we start, and Cynthia said, oh my God, is he suggesting that we are obsessed? And now we are finding out, because he's saying, check, if you postpone to fulfill your own tasks, if we are postponing, are we obsessed? Yeah, because he is testing the disobsession, that means that we are, and we find out in what we're checking here. Why is that important? Check if you postpone to fulfill your own tasks.
Anything, yeah?
But the tasks are based on what? Anything? I can do what I want? Is that what he's talking about? If I do what I want, I'm really obsessed. I'm really disturbed. Why?
Because we are being very...
Because Ebenezer, you came back to earth not to do what you want, but to carry out your tasks. We have our duties through our program of reincarnation. Is that making sense? So, if you postpone to fulfill your own task, which tasks could we, as immortal beings, postpone to fulfill?
Motherhood.
Motherhood. What does it mean? What do you understand about motherhood?
Like, let's say you have an abortion now because you think you're not ready to have the baby and you think I'm going to have a baby in 5 years' time. Or sometimes people, or let's say like to look after maybe your mom or your dad, you think, oh, I'm going to go on holiday, or I do this and that, and then I move because I'm getting older, and then you postpone, and then when you're ready, let's say they die.
Okay, that's an example. I would be willing to carry out taking care of my motherhood tools or tasks that I undertook before coming back. It's not all of us who come with that task, but those who come, their responsibilities. Because we as spirits, we cannot learn everything in one existence. What other examples could we consider that we could postpone to fulfill? Which kind of tasks?
But when I was thinking about the daily tasks, for example, if I postpone, I have to wash the dishes and I keep postponing it, or my bed, or anything, it means this is a pattern of behavior. So if I do with the small things, I will do with the
yes,
big ones.
very right. Because it is a condition that we have of postponing. Postponing means what?
We are not looking after ourselves.
We are not looking after ourselves to renew ourselves, to promote ourselves. So we are in a closed, locked mentality, isn't it? I don't wash the dishes now. But then we are also talking about procrastination, we are talking about inertia, we are talking about psychic laziness. Is that good for us?
No.
Oh, the ego likes it. But the self, no. Because that allows us to be stagnated in our evolution. But yes, it is with the simple daily things that we observe. Is it easy for me when I wake up to do my bed? I always remember that a friend would say, "When is what to do it?" I go back again, lie in the same place. It's not about that. It's how we self-motivate us and also develop the higher faculties in discipline, order, beauty. It's not much better to see the bed made instead of everything upside down. Which other tasks could we as immortal being postpone to fulfill?
Our moral development, learning about ourselves, our behavior, how we could improve it.
To learn who we are, where we came from, what is the purpose on earth, how to be engaged in our own promotion, spiritually speaking, yeah, how to be develop the characters of the good person more and more as a free choice, how we learn to be more patient with our partners, with our children, with our friends, with the people who are around us, how we learn to be more responsible towards the greatest purpose in our existences. Is that making sense?
Too much.
Too much. But it's a very short sentence that the Spirit and the Alliance is presenting, but it actually impacts our own existence. Tasks that I may postpone. If I came back, let's imagine, I bring that, then can I? How can I postpone that? Carry on slumbering, carry on gossiping around, yes? So I'm not fulfilling my own evolution task. Are you okay?
Petrified.
Petrified. Welcome to reality. If I'm not honest with paying my bills, if I choose to be dishonest, I'm not fulfilling, I'm postponing to carry on the tasks that help me to elevate, to evolve, to progress spiritually, to progress. Huh? Pay my taxes is an issue that a lot of people do everything that they can not to do that. Learn to be loyal, learn to be sincere. Any other example?
I was thinking about our thoughts, because we have this, like, we are slowly in the process of thinking when we keep postponing tasks. I think if there is a difficulty to think,
So,
we can start to think how we think. So we can say, okay, there might be a little bit of inertia there, because sometimes we might be postponing tasks we not realize we're doing it.
yes, that is all of this what Andrea Luiz is presenting here. The process of dissobsession is a process of self-awareness. Are you aware of that? Everything starts to the way how we think. And if you are not aware, how can we change what we bring from centuries and centuries? Be aware what we think, because that will end up how we feel and how we behave. Through the disobsession process, it's fundamental for me to know what I'm feeding myself through the way that I talk to myself. Is that making sense?
If you recognize that every human creature is imperfect, we included, and therefore it is not legitimate to...
What is he helping us to check within, considering the process of this obsession?
So like, I think to check ourselves, because we often see other people imperfections first, and we like to point at someone who we think, so let's say a priest, we think that he's supposed to be more perfect than us, and we will often point if he makes any mistakes and judge him even more harshly because he's priest. And what they're saying is basically everyone is human, we are, so don't expect better from anyone.
Okay, what else?
I think it's easy to do that with the people we love, but the ones we don't like, even the smallest imperfection, we just point out and say it out loud. It's like it was the worst thing. And for me, it's very difficult, especially with the ones that I don't have affinity, family members, to calm down and not talk about the imperfections.
What is that requiring for us to succeed in this proposal that Andrea Luiz is presenting to us? Follow your collocation. I think the first thing, we need to be always constantly self-aware of who we are, immortal spirits, that we are on earth in order to re-educate ourselves. When that becomes more clearly on the conscious level onwards, through the constant training, then it becomes easy when we are facing the challenges and tests that we all have. Because we rest us from us, then it becomes easier to update, upgrade, to be more vigilant. So then we know the negative thoughts, but we re-educate ourselves within that, knowing what we are doing, freely choosing to do that. It is a gradual process. But yes, understanding that on earth, no one of us is perfect. Who was the only perfect being on earth so far? Jesus. And he is the guide of humanity for us to follow. Because if we follow human beings, sooner or later, we may get disappointed. Because they are imperfect. We all are imperfect. That is fundamental in relation to others. And not thinking that we are better than others, which is pride and selfishness manifesting. When he said, it is not legitimate to demand from others testimonies of holiness and greatness. Upgrade ourselves and bring our expectations to reality, isn't it? And how do we do that? Do we still all, or perhaps have a reference of expectations, how people should be? Yeah. So how do we do that we don't carry on with those expectations? What is lacking in us? What did we ask to carry out on the school earth? To learn to love ourselves. And as much as we do, because love, what love means to us in this stage. How do I exercise love? How to express love? Respect self and others. What else? Be benevolent with self and others. Be indulgent with self and others. Be forgiving with self and others. And in that way, it's easier to relate with the shortcomings of others, because we also relate in a more loving way towards our own shadows, our own imperfections. But always constantly be willing to change that. Because what happens if we consider that we are perfect and others not? What happens on a broader perspective in our minds?
Then people think that we are superior.
That we are superior, and where are the roots of that superiority coming from?
That's ego.
From the ego, specifically, from pride and selfishness. And in that frame of mind, who will I be connected to? The same spirits who then I will allow to be obsessed by. Is that making sense? Then we carry on to the next one. Then Andrea Luiz says, check if loyalty is kept to the commitments made. Which kind of commitments do we have? Do we know? Sometimes we are in the automatism running. Do we know what I, as a mortal being, committed to?
From the smallest to the biggest, like even for Cynthia, let's say I've been committed to do the children's group, or let's say, or somebody committed that they're gonna do some baking for the week. At work, we've got lots of small tasks and commitments, so everything, wife, daughter, commitments, everywhere.
Okay.
A lot of commitment. I was thinking about music. Sometimes I feel like with the commitments, it's like you have three balls in my hands, and then I have to hold you and put you up in the air and hold a bit, and then keep changing, because I find to do everything the same every week with all the commitments, I find very challenging sometimes. So, for example, 1 week I focus more on one, and then the other week more on the other, and then keep changing. But I don't have the discipline to do them all the time.
Yes, that is what Andrea Luiz, I think, is helping us when he says, if loyalty to whom? To us is kept to the commitments made, to the commitments that we made. So if loyalty is kept within, what means loyalty? To stick what I choose, what I committed, to hold my own word. What I said, I commit to this and I will stick with it. I take responsibility and I train the mental discipline, because we still are quite indisciplined. This is why it's quite easy to be disloyal. We say one thing, we commit today, but tomorrow anything changes, we change together. We find it difficult to commit with the higher self. Higher self we are talking here. Yeah? And we will be training in the simplest experiences that life presents to us on a daily basis. Then Andrea Luiz carries on. Cynthia, read that for us. Chair?
If you cultivate punctuality, but I think the punctuality here is more than just with the time, more with the clock.
So what is it more than the punctuality on the clock?
I think I don't know how to explain it, but I know it's more than that. It's like being here but ready as well.
Okay.
Not just being on time.
Okay. First, if I don't cultivate punctuality, will I be a person who is punctual on my commitments? No. I'm always late, I'm always lazy, I always have justifications, I always say because the bus is no, I don't know, whatever. I haven't developed that commitment internally. But what do we need to develop in order to cultivate punctuality? You said learning to be present wherever we are. What do we need to develop on the psychic level?
Loyalty and the commitment will help us with punctuality.
I would say decision as well for this, because once you decide something, doesn't matter what's happening, you will be there. It won't be a problem anymore.
No, it's only a problem for us, let's say, immature spirits who haven't learned to mature ourselves in the higher commitments. Because in order to cultivate punctuality, to develop ourselves, that becomes a natural part of us, that we don't need to make any effort. For instance, I have, let's say, a lecture in a Spiritist center. So what do I need to do in order for me to commit to punctuality? I need to learn to prepare, to be responsible, to prepare the best of my abilities. What else?
Plan your journey.
I need to plan my journey. Before that, what do I need to plan?
Leave everything ready.
My diary. Because if I commit myself, let's imagine, to a different Spiritist center, don't I need to plan my diary to know and allocate time enough? And not exactly, because then I really will not pass the test of obsession. So that I allocate sufficient time, that I'm there before the meeting starts, so that I can relax the mind of the directors, that I don't disturb the board. Does that make sense? What else?
Yeah.
Responsibility, for sure, I need to develop in order to be responsible, to be punctual. I need to learn to develop mental and emotional discipline, because otherwise I'm all over the place. Autonomy, to really develop the higher potentials of the consciousness, isn't it? Which are the virtues.
Respect for others.
Respect for others, because again, when we are very immature, we may say, well, it doesn't matter if I write later. No, it does matter. If I have a commitment, if I'm on time, I'm responsible for me, I'm responsible for the others, I'm responsible with the greatest movement of progress that is happening beyond my imagination. Because we are all important in the greatest work of God, isn't it? Sincerity is important that I develop, that I give rid of my false illusions and lies that I carry within, because it can be a huge problem for people who haven't developed that. Because in order to cultivate punctuality, I need to develop and mature my emotional intelligence as much as my intellectual intelligence, as much as my spiritual intelligence. Once I got to that level, then I won't have much problem anymore.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like a snowball, because if you're late, if you don't have an excuse, you have to invent one. You remember at work,
yeah.
Yeah, we knew that people were lying.
Yes, because it is like a snowball, but based on the references from the ego, as we mentioned previously, procrastination, indifference, which we didn't mention, because when we're talking about the ethical moral values, we are talking about indifference. As long as I do what I want, I couldn't care about others. And that is the immature aspect on our emotional dimension. Then we carry on here with Andrea Luiz, who says, the test process of dissobsession. Check if you avoid contracting debts.
Is it about money?
What do we understand here? Is the money issue that came to your mind? Could it be? Could it be a process of obsession if I don't take responsibility and just contract more and more debts? Of course, there can be a huge process.
From like anxiety. Anxiety precedes many crimes. Mm-hmm. So when we do an action which is against the laws of God, we are in debt.
Mm-hmm, correct. So we may contract moral debts. Yes, because our moral debts, in a sense of we are all under the law of God, the law of love, which guides the universe and everything and everyone. And if I use or we use our free will against what God's will is, I may contract debts, moral, ethical debts, that as a learner, sooner or later, need to redo my own thinking, re-educate myself, and go through experiences. If I now take the right track, I may not need to. Which kind of moral debts can we contract?
I think the first example that comes to my mind is indifference.
Indifference, yes. I couldn't care less about others as long as I always do what I want. It's a very selfish way of living.
I remember when I did the gospel at home, the same message came again and again for several weeks, which says, be careful not to be indifferent when you can be useful. Mm-hmm. So that
is a huge process. Mm-hmm. Because when we are indifferent, when we can be useful, that creates debts in our consciousness. Because we are not a physical body, we are not on earth only to promote the material aspects. We are here especially to spiritualize ourselves. And how do we spiritualize ourselves? To develop our moral, ethical values, which are based on the virtues. So indifference is a moral defect based on selfishness. As long as I attend my needs, my people, that's it, yes, in my way. But we are here really to cooperate for the great good of everyone, everywhere, all the time, as much as we can. And our guide is and still will be Jesus. And he came to behave in that way to teach us. So that's correct. Another test to process of this obsession, Andrea Luiz says, read it for us, Cynthia. Check.
If you guide the conversation without unnecessary questions. This is something you learned here.
How can we develop that?
A lot of unnecessary questions and it's just for us to feed our curiosity.
Correct. So what is the greatest challenge to learn here when he says, check if you guide the conversation without unnecessary questions? What do we as spirits, as immortal beings, learn to develop within to reach this capacity?
To control our curiosity.
First, I would say self-awareness. Because sometimes, because we are so stressed emotionally, consciously, we like to talk. We don't have any filter. Because that shows the imbalance that we carry within. So self-awareness, is it also important that we learn to silence? What for?
To listen.
To listen to whom?
To us.
To us. To listen to us what we are thinking. Because when he said to guide a conversation without unnecessary questions, I need to be aware what I'm thinking. I need to be aware what I'm feeling. Before opening my mouth, that I can still select what I will say. According to what? My selection will be according to what?
To God's law.
To the natural laws in the universe. And then I will select. If I have the tendencies to the curiosity, as you said, then in becoming aware of my tendency, learning to silence and learning to filter what I say, more and more condition myself to speak less, but with more wisdom. Therefore, I will disturb less myself and others. Because we are here not to say, I think I this and this and that. We are here to learn to speak according to the natural laws in the universe. And in order to learn to speak in that way, we need to learn to think in that way. Isn't it?
Even is what helped me with the questions is to ask myself before I ask a question, is this information relevant for my life? Do I really need to know that? Will it help in any way? And most of the time the answer is no.
And I have also always the habit that I'm conditioning myself in the education process to ask myself, what is that bringing in my existence? And when I say existence, I don't focus here only on the ongoing process. Because I'm responsible in the here and now, what I'm training myself with, which kind of habits, which kind of conditions that I'm creating here. And as more as we learn to center, and the silence is not only through the mouth, but the silence in the heart, that we accommodate ourselves in a different way. And we don't have control how people know what they say and how they say, but we can learn to have fully control internally and be attentive and vigilant, whatever comes, that we don't engage in any unnecessary questions. But we learn to be more centered, more economic in the words, because then we also are learning what Emmanuel is very good, which is to just say the essential, and yet to say a lot. But our existence is our stage where we usually have the tendency to say a lot in words, but empty words. They don't have much substance.
And I've learned a big lesson today, Denise, because I always admire people who speak a lot. And today I learned that we might be speaking and we might be obsessed, even if we speak a lot, because I don't speak a lot. And sometimes I torture myself to speak, to say. But I never thought that the person who speaks a lot might be in the process of...
Sometimes we can be very obsessed in this speaking a lot with the slander, the gossip. We are very obsessed because this is not part from God's laws. We are not back to earth to do that. Those are our old habits. And also we serve as instruments from the obsessors, as we say in spirits, those who want to spread slander, those who want to spread discord, they are using our vigilance and our own tendencies. So what will help you, Cynthia, and all of us, is to understand what Jung said. In terms of personality on earth, the majority is just a type of personality that we may have. And then now with Andrea Louise, oh my God, suddenly I wake up, the people very chatty, they can be very obsessed. So let me observe my tendencies. What is the goal that we are in? The middle pathway, isn't it? Centeredness. It's not that we don't speak, but everyone is different. Some people are more introverted, others are more extroverted. And as long as we are educating ourselves in goodness, in love, in forgiveness, and be cooperating to promote ourselves and others, let's talk. But when it comes to disturb, let's silence, because that is good for us. So that we work towards our own process of dissobsession.
Who said that when you speak, you can only repeat what you already know, and when you listen, you can learn something you don't?
Yeah, that's true. So when we're talking about the unnecessary questions, if in a stage of evolution that I was very focused in the futile things, I really will be always questioning. But if you already evolved more, you learn to select more, you have more discernment, you are more grounded. We learn with British people, less is more. I love that. Less is more. We don't need to feel guilty afterwards. We don't need to go through the dissobsession process, which is a hard work because we need to go through to re-educate ourselves. So there are a lot of benefits. Yeah? And then Andrea Luiz carries on. Check if you welcome constructively the criticisms that are directed to you. It's very challenging what he is presenting, but it's real. It's hard. Why is it hard for us to welcome constructively? He's very clear here. To the criticism that are directed to us.
Because I think our habits and it's true, and that's why it's really hard to me. I know, but you've got the defensive, and you still probably will try to look at what's wrong with him. You know, he's judging me, but that's why it's difficult, I think, because of old habits.
The old habits are based on what? For us to expand our self-awareness. These old habits that makes it difficult for us to welcome constructive criticism directed to us, which these habits are based on what?
Pride, ego.
Pride and selfishness. Again, we come back what we learned in the Spirit's book. Those are the two greatest shadows that we all bring. Because then we arm ourselves, we consider ourselves better than we are, we charge ourselves that we really are perfect, and so on and so forth. But on the bottom line, where prevails the pride and selfishness, we are also touching on the lack of self-love. Does that make sense? Because as more as we learn now to love ourselves, to obey, to not because I have to, because I'm understanding the process of the law of God, which is based on love, and I choose to restructure myself in that way. We are learning to love ourselves from within, where God's laws is based. Therefore, what happens with external references towards us? Will that impact us less or more? Less. Because we are building real values based on God's laws within. Learning also that we don't have control what other people say or think, but also be open to receive. What is a constructive criticism? How could we use different words to decodify that? Feedback. Feedback. Feedback at home, feedback at work, feedback wherever we are. So when we decondition ourselves in this defensive mood through self-love, it becomes easy. It's a feedback. Criticism will be very difficult to listen and to check in, because usually what happens, we run away and we blame others, when in reality everything is right according to God's laws through our journey on earth for us to overcome our limitations.
And if criticism, the feedback can help a lot. Because I was thinking, I worked in a job which was data analysis, and every single day the manager, because we got the data, made the report. So even if it was the one letter wrong, the manager had to do a meeting and then give the feedback. And it was like a daily meeting, sometimes twice a day. And it helped every one of us in the department to get better for about a year. And I was thinking, imagine with life, if we had the feedback. So constant.
Imagine, that's a good idea. Imagine where is the first society for the spirit, which is the family. Let's, before the family, let's take the couple, married or not. But if we develop maturity enough to learn to give feedback to each other constructively and take it in and both grow together, would we believe in the reality as we are currently on earth in relation to relationships? No. What still prevails a lot? Criticism, blaming each other,
Give up.
anger, give up, because these days, because we are all pretty much in obsession process, we don't want to invest anything, I just give, read, and I move on. That is the obsession process. Because people are not, how do you say, objects. That now I don't want it, or then I don't want it. We are dealing with other spirits. So criticism, which is a feedback, is very positive when we are willing to disobsess ourselves. Because one of the aspects that the spirits, the obsessive spirits do, when we are very big in the ego, when we receive a feedback, immediately they help us to go apart from that person. Or not to stay, not to be committed anymore. Because we take it personal. In reality, we lose the opportunity for us to grow. Then we carry on. I don't know whose turn is it yours now, Cynthia? Okay.
If you talk by helping or assaulting those who listen.
So another test, the process of this obsession is check if you talk by helping or assaulting those who listen. What is the meaning here?
Is it about the way you talk?
And what comes to you in the way that you talk?
But is he saying that, okay, if you talk by helping, means like, I talk to you about something and because of that you feel better and I helped you. And or assaulting, so does it mean that if I assault you, but this will make you a better person, is it okay?
No. I think
to check.
to check, because remember the word here is always put in check. Check yourselves or selves if you talk by helping or assaulting those who listen. So when we speak with our partner, with our father, with our mother, with our children, are we helping them through the way that we speak, or are we assaulting them? Are there different ways that we talk? Yeah? Which are?
We could be armed.
We could be armed, we could be critical. What else?
There is an expression in Brazil that we say sometimes we eat the people alive because we criticize so much and it's so intense. I think this is an example of assault.
That's also getting some make this person to not to do what, you know what I mean? You say, oh, you always do that, you always, why you like that, thinking, oh, this person is not going to be like that because you said all the needs of the bad thing. And actually, in the end, just make them feel worse. But often parents used to do that.
Yes, in the previous generations, even in these days a lot, with this old-fashioned way of thinking that you educate imposing, that you educate forcibly.
Yes.
Do we need to be assertive sometimes as parents?
Yes.
Quite often, yes. And if you are not, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
Assertive is different than be critical. Is that making sense? But why do we know that criticize, well, we always do wrong, blah, 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 blah. Why is that not helping?
Are we reinforcing the negative?
We are reinforcing the negative in whom?
In us?
In us, and we keep on obsessed. Yeah. Yeah. To start with, we are talking about our own self-obsessive ways of thinking and feeling and acting. And now we remember, who is our guide of self-disobsession? Jesus. How long is he waiting for us to wake up and to learn to do things correctly?
I think it's still waiting.
Yes, how long is that, more or less? More than 2,000 years. Now we are in one existence and we are really to put, you need to learn that. We are really obsessed when we are doing that.
But why someone allows us to be too obsessed?
Who allows us to be obsessed?
Exactly.
Do you know who? Us. We are immortal beings. God granted us the faculty of freedom, the free will. That means that we have internal choice. But for us to use it wisely and responsibly, we need to learn to be conscious, to be aware, to take responsibility of what I think, what I feel, what I do. Unless, over that, on my unconscious memory, I bring my old ways of thinking, on the automatic way. But we are here exactly to learn to think for ourselves according to the natural laws in the universe, which are based on love that comes from God.
And when it's question 466 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked the spirits, why does God permit spirits to incite us to evil? Why does God let the spirits
the evil spirits to influence us?
To influence us in a negative way. And the spirits answered, imperfect spirits are meant as instruments for testing the faith and constancy of individuals in the practice of the good. So it's a challenge for
It
us
is for
to
us,
focus on the positive.
because the imperfect spirits are obsessive, either incarnates or disincarnates, because we have incarnates also. They are instruments of God. Not that they came back, not that we came back to harm others or do bad. We came back to do things rightly. So now when we have these peoples in our life, it is a God's instrument for us to persevere in conquering self-love, forgiveness, the goodness, the characters of the good person, as the Gospel according to Spiritism teaches us. Is that okay? Yeah. So when we change the lenses, I love when Joanna Genesis says, when we change the lenses in that way, it becomes easier. Because the person quite often doesn't know, because they hate us, they gossip, they slander about us. When we are training to be wise, we change the lenses, connect with our essence, and we persist in developing the higher faculties of the soul.
I 100% agree. I used to do that, but on the other hand, or maybe another disobsessed spirit make me feel that then I am now thinking that I'm better than this person. My grandma used to say, kill it with kindness. Yes, that's good. But then I discovered that if I think that, I forgive you, I'm already putting myself a little higher than you.
You don't want to put yourself higher than you.
Than anyone.
No, that is not what we are asking. We get obsessed because we put ourselves higher than others. Once we learn the real law, which is respect and everything else, we will not consider us as higher than others. We will consider to focus in getting higher than us. Evolving more ethical than we are, and not imposing that on others. Because as we just mentioned, Jesus is waiting for us more than 2,000 years. Why do we have that need to impose? Because we haven't educated ourselves to promote us to be better than we were, or than we are.
Is that the commitment to our moral
tasks?
Let me message tell that I don't want free will. Just do it as you want, because you better don't give me free will. I need it.
We all need to exercise the highest faculty, which is the free will, which is the faculty of freedom that God gave to all of us since our creation. And so far, we trained it in a very selfish, prideful way, doing only what is good for me and mine. That is the way, in a very materialistic way. And that is what we are coming back constantly, in order to disobsess us in that lies, in order to train us now within the new ways of being. Is that making sense? It's beautiful when you reflect on that. Doesn't matter how other people are relating with us. What matters is how we relate with us, and understanding more and more what is our purpose on earth. It is never to consider ourselves bigger than others, because that is a great obsession process. Obsession. Because once we go through the test of disobsessing us, we will really place us in the right place where God puts us, which is in a loving place. As
people who sometimes one day like put themselves high, then they put themselves low, then like this. Is that bipolar or something, I guess?
Well, that is a part of training. Sometimes we are more connected with what we would like to do, but we still have our history for centuries and centuries with us. And we also have the obsessors, the spirits who don't like us or are not happy because we are promoting goodness. They will also paralyze ourselves. So we may have our mentality or our psychic level is still a bit unstable. And as more as we conquer the real ethical values, we become stronger within. Then we are more stable. When we check previously, we are more punctual. We are more loyal to carry out our own tasks. All of that becomes stronger. Now, if you carry on here, now listen. Are we prepared? Andrea Luis, test process of disobsession. Check if you hold resentments.
So we are all upset.
Do we know what resentments mean? Why do we hold resentments? Ego, yeah, because we are full of pride and selfishness, isn't it? We always come back to that. And that translates into the lack of self-love. when I'm empty of self-love, when I didn't learn to take care of myself from the self-level onwards. So I'm so full of pride. Who do you think you are telling that to me? And I resent and go over and over and over again, instead of just learning and letting go. And then we learn here, I brought Joanna Jones to help us. She brings light to us. When she explains in the book Om Integral, it says regarding resentment. Resentment is a manifestation of unexternalized aggressive impotence. It becomes a bitterness lock, making it unbearable to live with those against whom it turns. Isn't it true what she says? How could we translate it? When she says an unexternalized aggressive impotence. What's that telling about us? Resentment is a manifestation of unexternalized aggressive impotence.
We wanted to say a lot of things because we felt impotent, and we didn't express the aggressiveness, and we internalized it.
Yes, and we are internally impotent because we are dealing with low self-esteem, inferior complex, lack of self-worth. And then I need to defend myself, isn't it? Is that making sense? So we are, in other words, wounded spiritually. And then in terms of protect myself, I hurt or resent to take on this toxic way of relating with myself. It's lack of accepting self and others. Resentment is because people are doing or behaving as I think they shouldn't. And then as more as I carry on with the resentment, more bitter I feel within. And I get obsessed in that way. And then in order to be obsessed by the spirits, it's rapidly. And then I find it difficult to live with the other people that I feed that bitterness. Is that making sense? Can we free ourselves? Can we unlock ourselves in that way? Yes, every day. What can we do to unlock ourselves in this bitterness?
Forgive.
Learn to forgive. What is learn to forgive?
Accept that people.
Learn to accept people as they are and train yourself in more love so that you increase the ability to forgive more, to do more goodness, to be more indulgent, to be more benevolent. Then we free ourselves. But Kenny Obiandra Luis, he hasn't finished yet the test here with us. He carries on saying, check. Severina, read it for us, please.
If you know how to attract friends and feed affections, what? Is that bad?
What is bad?
To attract friends.
No, he's saying, check. If you know how to attract friends and feed affections, are we able to relate in a friendly way with people? Yeah. Okay, then we are healthy. But if we are fighting constantly with people wherever we are, then it's criticism without slander. Is that what he says here?
I misunderstood, that's why.
Is it clearer now?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, because again, if we cannot make friends, as I mentioned, every place that we go, we constantly are crashing and immediately bitter with other people and creating confusion. That is where we are obsessed. And he's suggesting that we learn to disobsess ourselves in evaluating our habits that we bring in. Learn to be more, develop the universal fraternity, friendship. And then he carries on saying, check if self-control is maintained in emotional life as the basis of your mental diet. What comes to us here?
Yeah, lack of self-control is clear.
How can we perceive in us the lack of self-control? Is that noticeable? In which way?
Sometimes yes, sometimes not, but to me, first thing comes children drive you crazy. I'm losing it.
The loving children, hey, I'm saying the message also. The loving children who help us to evolve.
Yes.
Because spiritually we are also children, isn't it? So when we scream, when we shout sometimes, yes, when we, what else?
When we talk when we're not supposed to.
When we talk when we're not supposed, when no one asks, but we are giving out an suggestion, because if I don't say things, they will not change.
Or the other way around, when we silence, when we're supposed to say something, we're upset, we're not talking.
Then we are really, in Portuguese we say emburrado. I don't know. I don't know how to translate that in English.
But many countries, it's almost like a cultural thing, this shouting stuff.
Yes, it is. And it can be a big problem. I knew someone once in a culture which is very natural to speak in that way.
Yeah.
They moved to a different culture and they received constant feedback in the workplace that they need to learn to control themselves. They need to learn to present themselves in a balanced way. And that was a great challenge because they were brought up in that cultural system.
Well, I'm married to one like this. But
What?
I'm married to one.
Are you married to
one culture like this? But outside they know very well how to behave. But it's in there. But I realized at the beginning that I was thinking for them, if you do not shout at the child, you are not bringing up the child, you're not teaching the child.
If you don't shout?
Yes.
Well, that was the old system. What is Jesus' system teaching us in terms of education? Either self, children, whatever. Which kind of method is he presenting?
Attention.
Shouting? What is it?
Understand.
You never heard? Is it not love?
But then, if you have them like this, then what are you?
Then they don't listen, isn't it? Then they don't listen.
Or you split up?
You learn through love also to be assertive, which is not aggressive. You learn to put boundaries. You learn to say yes and no without aggressiveness. And I can say and learn to say yes and no without saying yes and no. Does that make sense? Okay, we are all there on the journey. Then Andrea Luis carries on here saying, all of us, the evolving spirits on earth, have our share of obsession. Does it feel good? It's not just me. Or a greater or lesser extent. And we are all working towards our own liberation. Is that not true? What is the purpose on earth? It's not to favor our own education. Our own education between the natural laws means our own liberation. As more as we learn to have control of ourselves, as more as we become better people, better beings, we choose freely to stimulate the higher potentials of the soul, we are working towards this liberation. But we will not be perfect in this existence yet. We still need many, many others. Is that not quite consoling for all of us?
Yeah.
Consoling, hopeful. And then we carry on, he says. In that way, from time to time, it is extremely important to test our own dissobsession process, so that each of us observe, in particular, how we are doing. What do we learn here now?
Watch out.
Watch out. Of what? Of whom?
Your shadows.
Of our own shadows.
And ourselves, no?
Okay. Watch out of ourselves. What else?
I read in a message today when he said we needed to do a pulse for assessment.
To carry on feeding our own obsessive processes. Pause is like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I took is creating the habit, because we run on daily basis quite on the automatic pilot. We wake up, get the kids, go to school, go to work, blah, 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 blah. Pause means stop. Listen to you, listen to me, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. I'm committed to my higher self, the way that I think, the way that I feel, the way that I'm acting. And if not, what can I do right now to actualize, to change, to modify? St. Augustine, in the question 919 in the Spiritist book, he says that we should do that evaluation on the end of today. Because we are in such intensive learning on earth currently, I would challenge St. Augustine and say, do it as often as we can. Because on the end of the day, I can have already conquered a lot of debts, as we said previously, more energetically speaking. But if you create a habit, since I wake up, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. The middle of the morning, if possible, at lunchtime, in the middle of the day, after work, before I go to bed, we have more chances to see where we are and also to change before in the end of the day. We have more chances to succeed more. Is that?
Yes, it's like you stop to be with yourself for a couple of minutes, or just assessment, like you said. Because sometimes it's hard to do it when we are so committed to the tasks and ready to get everything done.
We are great, great doers. But what is Spiritism, which is inspiring our lives in a healthier way, suggesting to us? To carry on being excellent BHG doers? Not? So what is it? To pause. Are we all tested here or given the opportunity for us to develop more our way of being? And that comes to learn to reserve time to be with oneself.
But if you have no time to like pause.
If I don't have time, good question. Who's responsible for the time? The universe. The time belongs to God. Who is responsible for my time? Mine. Ebeneze's time on earth. Who is responsible? God? Ebeneze. Ebeneze is responsible for my time. To learn to use my free will and find the time. Because we are coming from a very materialistic way of living. Doing. Jesus is coming, stop. Being. And that is a huge challenge for us. Because we need to learn to find time for what is more important in our existences. To learn to be with us. There is always a way, if you want to. We can even in the office, I always say people who are working full time in the office, human rights, you have a right, you need to go to the loo. Do it there.
It's someday.
When we come back to work, by bus, by tube, what do we do mentally? We can use that time. When we go to work, we can train ourselves to do that.
Yeah, but this is what I'm going to say. I'm actually meditating on the go. I'm doing it every single day. I'm driving and it's becoming like a feet.
Precisely. And even willing to really constantly on earth as he is suggesting to us. And let's look at this process in a loving way, in a friendly way, and invest as much as we can on a daily basis. And in that way, we are coming to the end today. I would kindly ask Cynthia to do a closing prayer, please.
Dear God, we are very happy to be here one more time for this opportunity given to us to overcome our shadows.
We'll have a good week in our journeys and see you next week.
This was quick today.